Hey, Internet. It's Paul. It's Matt. We are here to talk about Star Trek Discovery, of which we have watched the first 2 episodes.
Yes. So, yeah, careful there.
Yes, careful.
People in other countries, I guess, would be Netflix or...
Episode 1, Vulcan Hello, and Episode 2, The Battle of the Binary Stars. Battle of the Network Stars, I think is what it's called. Yeah, and you're right. Overseas, you can like Netflix it, but that is not an option here. We'll talk. How about that? We'll save the
discussion about
all access talk to the end. So we'll do the substantive first, procedural second.
Sure.
Okay. Because it is a worthy topic. All right. So first off, give me your thoughts, Paul, generally on the 2 episodes.
I enjoyed it. Both episodes. I sort of had things that I was looking for in Star Trek, and it met those. Like, there have been times when I have said I'm not a Star Trek fan because the fans, I felt, had a certain mindset that I didn't share.
So, yeah, Joe, your background in your Star Trek fandom. What do you like, dislike, whatever, from the
So, here's the thing. I've
pantheon?
probably seen all of the Next Generation, and I've seen... all of Deep Space Nine and Voyager even, and I think I've seen most of the movies. I've seen wait, I said Enterprise.
No, you didn't say, but okay, you said Voyager, but you didn't say Enterprise. So
Enterprise. So I've seen all of Enterprise.
Okay.
I don't know if I've seen all of the original series.
All right.
The end was not so great. But no, I when I was a kid, people were into it, and I was not into the original series.
Okay.
And this is, rerun time here in the 70s, when it was rerun, I think, or early 80s. And but when I was an adult, I knew someone, a girl, we dated for a while, and she was really into Star Trek, so I watched The Next Generation. And what I liked about The Next Generation is it had continuing storylines, or at least...
And a narrative arc.
I shouldn't say continuing storylines. They would occasionally they would acknowledge that there was a past.
Yes. For instance, Picard learns to play the flute.
Yes.
He then knows how to play the flute.
Yes.
He doesn't just forget the next episode.
Right. There was some recurring characters is actually how I would, So, yeah, they were like, oh, remember that story
the
that
Traveler,
happened there? Yeah.
Whatever, yeah.
Right. But no, I felt that Deep Space Nine did a lot more with that, and that's why Deep Space Nine is my favorite series. And the other ones had problems. So, yeah, that's my, so that's what it had that I liked. The first episode, second episode, clearly part of a larger story in Star Trek Discovery. And the people that are making the show are like, yeah, we're going to do continuing storylines. Why? Because that's what all the shows do now.
That's what all the shows do now. Okay. Yes. And so that's one
of the
overall,
things that did that, yeah, and yeah.
All right, so cool. I come at it from... I did watch the original series, although obviously not at the time, but when I was a little kid in Germany at an army base, one of the few shows that was like on it. So I'm like 4 or 5, so I'm not even really like... I can't comprehend things! But I remember Captain Kirk fighting a Gorn, and I was hooked. I was like... Oh my God, he's fighting a giant lizard! Anyway, so, but then, yes, I watched it when I was actually able to, string sentences together, and I liked it then too. So, I would say my favorite series was Next Generation. I watched most of that series. I did watch some Deep Space Nine, and I did watch some Voyager. I did not watch Enterprise.
Oh, wow.
I don't know, I just didn't... I watched episode 2 and just didn't get into it.
They did some weird stuff on that show, so...
It didn't bring me in. Watched most of the movies. In fact, I noticed a passing similarity to episode 6, episode 6, number 6, Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. One thing had both use the word discovery in them, The Undiscovered Country and Star Trek Discovery, and Undiscovered Country. Is the one where it really focuses a lot on the Klingon Federation Cold War. There's a lot going on, Cold War style. And
is that the one at the top of it where Kirk is all ticked about Klingons, and he's basically like has a blood feud? Which one is that?
Yeah. Where he has the recording where he goes, "I'll never forgive them for the death of my boy," or something like that, or for killing my son. Or whatever. So, but again, that's very similar to what this Star Trek Discovery is about, right?
Sure. Yeah, you're right.
She being Michael Burnham, his character, can't forgive the Klingons for what they did to her family, and she carries that into this moment that is basically a break in the Cold War to an actual fighting war, and that's kind of what happens in number 6. Anyway, so just saying, there's a little bit of I like the it's almost like the U.S. Russia Cold War of the 60s, 70s, 80s kind of thing put over this scale of
Well, that
Klingons
certainly
and Federation.
was what they did in the original series.
Right.
That was definitely supposed to represent that Cold War mindset is what going on with the Klingons.
Yeah, and I feel like that's being brought to bear here with obviously a modern twist to it, but I think to good effect. I like that. There's a lot to like about the series. There's some things that we will chat about that maybe weren't so awesome, but I like the look of it.
I think it really captured what I like best about Star Trek. What I'm talking about in particular is, and then one of the interesting things about it actually is they have, I think one of the people consulting on the show is the person who wrote the screenplay for The Wrath of Khan. He's involved in the show, and the attitude that Captain Captain Georgiou and
Philippa, whatever.
Philippa Georgiou and Michael expressed a number of times was sort of like we're really competent. In fact, we're kind of a little arrogant actually. And so the first scene when they're walking around
in the desert
to create a little Star Trek insignia so that they can be found was a very much sort of like I don't like to lose Kirk moment from right. She says at some point she talks about what if we were stuck on this planet to Michael, the captain does. And Michael's like, I would do what I do because I'm a anthropologist or whatever. I'd communicate with the people. And the captain says, I would escape, which is very Star Trek. It's like, no, I can get out of any mess if I have to, So I think it definitely had that. And I think later on you just saw that again and again.
Well, it's interesting you brought up the point of I didn't get this till just as now, but Wrath of Khan. There is a Wrath of Khan-ish moment in it's episode 2 when the villain Takovma says like we're sending a transmission now.
Yes,
and what he's really doing is the invisible ship, it's like the cloaked ship comes in. So it's very similar to Wrath of Khan. Like we're sending it now.
Very much. Yep.
So yes, a similarity.
Yes,
sure.
yes, yeah. So. I thought, I liked that.
You liked that, yes. Why not borrow from the best movie?
Yes,
but most people agree is the best movie in the Star Trek.
Yeah. Now, controversially, I think they did as much as I would have liked them to break away from what some people see and the original Gene Roddenberry, creator of Star Trek, thought was the purpose of the show, which is to show how in the future. The people in the Federation, they got it figured out. This whole racial enmity and all that. Everybody gets along just fine. There's no conflict at all in the Federation. And the only trouble they have is with people outside of the Federation. So the Klingons are what the original series had. And then by the time the Next Generation came out, they were getting along better with them, but they still weren't getting along with the Romulans. And
And so you're saying you see more infighting or more problems within the Federation in this one because it's...
Oh, definitely. You never would have had anybody mutiny in the original series. It's certainly not one of the main characters anyway. You would, somebody who you're going to send away. But even then, Gene Roddenberry didn't like that, actually, to have the people in the Federation having conflict. So...
Everybody rowing in the same direction.
That's what they want, because that's the point of the future. He thought that's the case, and for me, that's why I always had trouble calling myself a fan because it's like I don't think that's, I don't think it's possible to have humans get to that point where it's like, oh no, we don't see any problems anymore,
And for all that talk, there were still episodes of the original series in which there were people from the Federation that did horrible things. And I mean, as much as you're right that the overall service was, we're all on the same team and great.
Yeah.
But there were guest stars that would come in and do horrible things.
He would, figure out ways to try to get around that. But ultimately, the whole society was not like that. And one of the interesting things I thought about this show, actually, is it makes me want to watch some of the previous ones to see the Klingons were really talking about purity a lot, actually, and I don't remember them having
a lot of racial purity things. Remain Klingon,
right?
Which obviously has its echoes in modern politics and such. I
mean, Nazis
not just modern
too,
politics, right? Yeah.
In the past, a lot of times.
I don't remember that, but it could have been a thing from the earlier series. But you're right; it stood out.
Yeah, I don't know if that was, but it'd be interesting to watch in terms of that. One thing that has been characteristic of Star Trek, actually, and I really liked how they did in Deep Space Nine, was talking about the different houses and warring with each other or whatever. And so it was definitely something that has been they're a warrior culture, so. It's like in Klingon ships, it's okay to mutiny, if you're willing to back it up with a fight, you can I'll fight you and then I'll take over the ship. That's perfectly
the strong
fine.
Survive.
Yes, exactly. So that's it's interesting that the whole thrust of the show is talking about this time in Klingon history when everybody was getting together to fight the Federation. And one of the things they talked about in the show, which I thought was good, one of the other things about Star Trek is to have people who aren't part of the Federation complain about the Federation. So it's like, oh, look at them getting together with all those, Andorians and the Vulcans and the humans getting together. Ugh! We must fight them for racial purity.
All right, so we might as well bring this up then while we're talking about the conversations. That was one of the negatives I had about the show in both episodes, but I don't know, because I just watched the second one most recently. Maybe it's resonating most in the second one. But, so, okay. First, the showrunner originally was Brian Fuller, yes?
Correct.
And that's one of the reasons you are also, because you're a big Brian Fuller fan.
I am.
We did American Gods earlier, and one of the reasons I like Neil Gaiman, he liked Brian Fuller, together, boom. Anyway.
And Brian Fuller has a history with Star Trek. He was a writer on the... he started, I think, in Next Generation. He worked in Deep Space Nine, and he also did some episodes for Voyager, actually. So...
so he's not just some guy that came in and like, oh, you're famous, here, you do a thing.
No, he actually worked on the writing staff back then, and went on to do his own shows, and, has gained popularity from special, very unique kind of shows.
So he was originally working on the show. He kind of created the map of where the show's going to go, and now he's more of like, would you call him a showrunner? It's not really he's like a producer.
He's not
right?
a showrunner.
Yeah.
I think he still has a connection, but I'm not sure exactly one of the reasons why apparently he left was because he's working on American Gods. So working on two shows can be rather difficult. But, another thing that I'd heard is actually his idea for the series was that it would be it'd be an anthology show, like American horror, where season to season is different, actually. A lot of people were sort of surprised that this season is about this period before the original series and after Enterprise. Like, why don't you continue it? Everybody wants to see what happens after the last one would be Voyager, I guess. Series.
Okay, because I think that's actually a good idea to put this. Why not stage it in this area where we don't really know a lot.
Well, one of the things that you don't get then is like what happens after this story.
Sure.
What happened, right. And I didn't think that. I mean, at one time we had 3 Star Trek shows at one time.
It's been a while though.
I don't have a problem with that.
12
and
years?
In this time of franchises, why not? Star Wars came back, and they're not just like we're going to continue the Skywalker story. We got Rogue One. We're going to get
They inserted Rogue One in the timeline.
Right, exactly, and it's not the Skywalker story at all. You don't see any Skywalkers in there.
They're talking about doing the Obi-Wan story. Well, we don't know when the Obi-Wan story is
right,
going to
but
be.
those are all
again,
ideas of like trying to. I mean, tepidly, I think, because they really should. They've been talk of doing Boba Fett, although I don't know if they're going to do it.
I think that's a thing.
Yeah. So they're trying to fill out the world, and why not do that with Star Trek? Have one set in this one period and one in a later period. But anyway. But it's possible he had. They didn't like the idea of the anthology.
Oh, they want to stay.
Like, let's see how this goes. We don't know what we're gonna do. Yeah.
So he was anyway the mastermind behind most of. What we're seeing.
I'm gonna say I'm sorry that one of the reasons why Michael is called Michael is because that's something that Brian Fuller does. Because his female characters have male names. And
she apparently, I read an interview that said that she just, internally, the actress decided that was like the name of her dad, and so it was like
interesting.
Homage.
Why she would take it. Yeah, apparently though there are women, like not a lot, but some women who are named Michael.
Yes, that's probably true. So all that is to say, Brian Fuller probably was the person who had the idea of like, hey, let's have the Klingons speak in Klingon, and then we'll show subtitles. Which is fine. Good idea. I appreciate the notion of it. The execution of it was, I think, clunky. For one thing, they talk very slowly. There's a gap between each syllable, as if maybe the actors are learning it syllabically, which they probably are. Right? They're not learning it by the word. They're learning it by the sound. And I'm sure they're trying to do it authentically. I'm going to guess that if you were to put a Klingon language person in front of the TV set, they'd be like, yep, that's what he's saying. So I'll give them that. But in the effort to do that, they slowed it down so much that it's kind of the equivalent of me talking to Paul about Star Trek. It's like, and then you see these giant words underneath. No. And so it's a combination of the dialogue is slow, and you're reading the entire thing. It just kills the momentum, I feel, of what's happening. It's interesting stuff. It's not that the words that they're talking about aren't interesting, to the Klingon culture and stuff. It's just, as a practical matter, speaking that slowly, and then also in a way that it's unintelligible, so we have to read slow talking dialogue. Just, I thought, didn't do service to what is essentially, this big space opera drama thing. No, would you agree or not?
No, I didn't care for it, but I don't know if I wouldn't phrase it that way. I mean, I thought it was slow, and I think I mentioned to you, I mean, the whole style that they speak in is very dramatic, and so I think that adds to the speed of it making it slow, because you really want to, it's like, okay,
Right, if they just sped it up, you're right, if they just spoke like, conversational Klingon instead of operatic Klingon.
And the other thing, too, is, like, it seemed like they put either voice filters or something on so it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, okay. I mean,
they're trying to pretend they're Batman.
One thing people are imagining might happen. I don't know that I've seen a legitimate report. I mean, I haven't seen one, but I don't know if there are legitimate reports that what they will do is explain why the Klingons keep changing.
Oh,
their faces change.
They do look
like
different.
Each show has their own Klingon, and I can't think of another race that is dramatically. It's like it's like they know that there's a new show. No one else knows, but it's like, oh no, our faces are different.
Now, didn't they?
Are we on a new show? Yes.
Well, I didn't see this. I read about it that apparently in Enterprise they had a version of. There was a virus, the augment virus or something, that changed the facial features of Klingons. So they kind of had
I haven't heard about that.
They wrote in an
excuse,
which they don't need to. I mean, I agree that they should look closer, perhaps, to a one unified Klingon look. But yeah, if you go back to the original series, then you go Worf from
Yeah,
Next
right.
Generation, and then these guys,
Right.
these guys look maybe more like the J.J. Abrams Klingons a little bit, perhaps, although they look different from them too. I like the costume design. Generally, that's very different, though. There are some different.
Yes.
So here's one thing.
Yeah, I have no problem with costumes changing, but and
The tech is whatever. It is what it is. Obviously, the original series was in the 60s.
Yes.
And we're now, whatever, 50 years later. So
50 years earlier than the 60s. Oh, that figure
in our time.
60s, yes.
So, I mean, there's a part of me that would like the tech to look similar to the original.
Well, thankfully, the guns look,
yes, the
those
phasers
look,
do.
Yeah, those look.
But
like
the ship, the
phasers.
deck of the ship,
Yeah.
the tech they're using, the slider bars and all that's.
I didn't mind that, but I would prefer them not to do hologram.
The hologram was a
geez.
big change. It was like,
Yeah.
oh wait, because that dude, it was the admiral, I think.
Yep.
He's standing in a room in a hologram, and he's turning and he's talking to different, as though he's got to see them.
Yeah. Right.
In
his
office.
In his office, they're probably little holographic versions of Michael and the captain
Whoa.
there sitting around.
Where did that tech go?
Yeah.
10 years later, in there. This is like 10 years before.
Somebody imagined that some admiral's like, I'd like to have these holographic meetings, but without wearing any pants. So I'm going to forget it.
We'll just stick with the screen.
Yeah.
Stick with the screen.
Thank you very much.
Oh yeah. Also, her spacesuits when she's going out and doing the thing seemed a little higher tech than your typical.
Oh sure.
Anyway, but blah. In some ways, it's like we are in this point in history. They didn't want to make it look clunky 60s,
Right.
so deal with it, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah, no, it doesn't bother me. Especially, I would have preferred them to actually do a little more effort to make it look.
There's a threshold at which, if they're suddenly like, oh yeah, we have transwarp drive, and we have, whatever, we have an instant death machine, and whatever. You're like, whoa, wait, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Oh, the holodeck. I mean, they haven't.
Yeah,
this brought that, but they have all the technology for the holodeck.
Well, they're getting closer.
It occurred to me. This is also just a side note. It was just kind of funny to me that, and it's completely plausible, but it was just funny. It made me think. So it's in the first episode. Mike, the beacon's lit. The beacon is lit. Tolkien reference. Anyway, and Michael's like, I have to go to my ready room.
Oh, yeah.
It's important, and she runs off. And then she immediately holograms Sarek.
Yes.
And like he's there, he's like ready to get a call, and he's there. And I'm thinking like unannounced calls. I think would be really tough in space. I mean, there's got to be like a narrow window, and you would think like you'd get him like
tough in space.
He's in the bathroom. I mean, just so like.
Oh well,
because you're not on the same timeline as they are.
That there would be other people going, oh, excuse me for a minute. Like,
right.
And he's
just
sort of
hanging
go
out
out of the
in a meeting.
cone of, of hologram or something.
Yeah.
But he did say he was waiting because he thought something was going to happen. Because there was a big light. So like, oh, what's that star doing over where she was supposed to be? So he did say he was waiting for her.
Well, then interestingly, so this is one of the... You tell me if this is a thing that existed before this, because I don't think this existed before, or at least I didn't know this. Not the technology, but a skill of the Vulcans. What we see in episode 2 is Sarek has like this universal mind meld with her, where he can like reach out into space and talk to her like a force ghost.
Right.
Which I was like, why even use the communicator then? If it's like, oh, I don't need a hologram.
It felt like something I had seen before, but I don't have a specific memory of it. So I accepted it, obviously. I feel like what we did know, because he mentioned something in terms of, because I've mind melded with you, or actually made it seem like it was more than that. Probably because I guess she was actually dying or something. So it's like there's a part of him within her. Maybe
it's similar to Search for Spock. So it's like Spock puts his consciousness into Bones.
Right, but
Bones
that's sort of like
it
was sort of like a recording though, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like I'm in here, get me out. It was more like I keep repeating the same thing over and over again to annoy you.
Yeah.
That would drive me nuts.
But it's interesting that that exists.
Or I guess actually more than that, though, right? Because he was able to
like download his essence back into the body, kind of thing. So he had his consciousness.
So maybe it was. Who knows?
But yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, obviously, it was a way for Sarek to communicate with her in that moment. I don't know that they necessarily needed that. I mean, basically, all he did was say, "Hey, try," and she's like, "Okay, I'll try." But whatever. It's her mentor.
Yes.
Coming to give her courage.
I liked it. Part of it was, I think, further establishing Sarek's character, which is somebody who, either typical Klingon father or bad Earth father.
Yeah, here's a kind of interesting point too. Okay, so obviously he has this mind meld, super mind meld with Michael.
Right.
Doesn't seem to have it with Spock. I mean, we never see it.
Right.
He also is constantly berating Spock for his humanness.
Yes.
And so it's just interesting that he has this really close connection with a human. A complete human.
Right. Well, but
of course, he also married a human.
One thing he says that's true. One thing he says with her though is, "Yeah, you're a human. You shouldn't have to speak our language. you don't have our tongue. You don't have to speak our language. And perhaps he's like judging her differently because she is human. Like she doesn't have any Klingon blood in her.
Yeah.
So it's like So he
he holds it to a different standard.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah. I did like that. So what that scene leads to, which is her, basically out logicking the computer.
Yes.
She uses Vulcan logic on the computer.
Well, it's like you know how the machine works, so you're like, okay, I have to help me live.
Right. Yeah, the computer's like, yeah, no, you can't. Okay, well, if in this circumstance.
And the great thing about that was they were really paid far more attention than most shows and movies do to what actually happens to you in space.
She had a few seconds.
Only a few seconds. Yeah, so that really worked, I think, that whole sequence.
Yeah, that was a cool sequence for sure. Okay, so we'll say this: I'm not at this moment. I mean, I get the arc. So Michael is a flawed hero.
Yes.
And we're going to see this arc of this flawed hero play out over this season, I assume.
Yes.
I just feel like I'm not seeing enough heroicness at this moment, and I see more flaw. It's like I don't like her. I'll just put it that way.
I think you're still struggling for the words, because you don't think she's heroic?
Well, I mean,
she just jumped out of into a thing to do that.
Sure,
and
she's saving herself.
And she was willing to kill herself. You were going to sacrifice yourself to kill all these things. I'll do it. I certainly feel guilty enough for what I've done.
She did feel guilty.
And the reason why she was doing it all was because she wanted to save them, actually. And she was willing to, perhaps futilely try to attack these people just to end it.
It's just the
I think you're
the act of betrayal is so huge when she neck pinches her mentor.
It's funny actually. Until someone said what Sarek said, what they traditionally do, like, when we see them, we attack first. That's the Vulcan hello. But I thought that pinch was the Vulcan hello.
Maybe it's both. So that's what she learns is like, hey, we Vulcans learn that you shoot first when it comes to Klingons. And that'll put them in their place, basically. And so even though that's totally against the Federation model, she's determined to do it to the point that she won't listen to her command, which if the very first scene and they're in the desert, she starts to question the commander and is like, why are we doing this? Why are we like, trust me. I know what I'm just I trusted you to get us to the well. You trust me to get us rescued, and then they get rescued.
Well, it's nice to know people's plans.
Yeah, I'm just saying that moment of like trust in me that I have the best interests at heart, and I'm not an idiot, and I'm not going to try to get us killed. I feel like
that was the theme throughout the episode.
That's your leader has a plan in mind, is going to do what they think is right. For you to then attack mutiny in that moment seemed completely just not forgivable Put it that way.
Right.
So, and I get her. She's
That's
reacting to the fact that
that's
the
one thing I
Klingons
loved
kill her.
about their. Well, before she did actually decide to forgive her, I guess, is that she was saying how arrogant she was. That she thought she could make up for the fact that how damaged she was, actually, by taking him from Sarek in. She was sort of like, Sarek, like, I don't know. And she was like, oh, I think I can do it. And that's when she says, I don't know you at all, that you would do this.
Yeah.
You aren't ready to be captain.
Right, because she thought she could be captain material. I do like Doug Jones, by the way, also as Saru.
He was great.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
I love the bit where he talks about his race's ability to sense the coming of death.
Yes.
Like, oh, that's actually a pretty good sense to have aboard a starship that's constantly being shot at.
Yeah, right. Yeah, some people, I think, are upset because that doesn't seem very scientific. But I think he was saying
like a betazoid, right?
I think basically just I think he's basically saying this doesn't feel good. You know, the feeling is that this is not going to lead to good things.
Yeah.
You know, his character though is a lot like that a lot though. Just very like, we sure want to do this? Like,
right?
Don't we want to leave?
But he says it in such a way that you don't. He's not the typical coward.
No,
he's not like
right.
Yeah. He's just like, that's actually really smart if you get the hell out of here.
Yeah. He's not like Villa.
Yeah, right. Hey, like 7 reference. One thing that I thought we were about to get. I saw that Michelle Yeoh was going to die, particularly because the show is called The Discovery,
Yes.
and we haven't gotten to the Discovery yet. We know it's a ship. We know Lucius Malfoy is going to run it.
Yep.
And in these 2 episodes,
Michael's going to be on it.
You get nothing. You don't get them at all. Anyway, so it's like, oh, you got to get rid of one captain to have another one, which is a shame. She did a great job. I almost feel like it'd be nice to keep her around. But when she has this big fight, she's doing she's doing fisticuffs with Tecumseh. I'm like, I remember Michelle Yeoh from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Oh, sure.
I will enjoy some martial arts, which didn't. I mean, the character obviously didn't necessarily know that, but she did not fight as well.
They don't have people flying around
as her character from Crouching Tiger. If her character from Crouching Tiger had been there, she would still be alive and would be
sure
hanging out on her ship, the Shenzhou, which is actually the name of a ship that is currently in service in the Chinese version of NASA. Whatever, it's a manned space program ship, so I assume that's a reference back to current Chinese space travel. So there you go for that. Also, the battle that Michael lost her parents, scars. It's the Denatu 5 is where this Klingon massacre happened, and that is actually referenced in the original series in the Trouble with Tribbles episode. So that is kind of in canon, basically, this moment in time. Okay, so generally speaking, it's a quality show. It does have a lot of interesting characters. I'm not particularly invested in the main character at the moment, Michael. She's in jail, and I'm like, good. Yes, that is a fitting place for her to be. But I assume that's gonna. Whatever. We're going to see her start at the bottom and work her way back to. And we already see in the trailers for the season that you know, everybody is kind of leery. Oh, you're the one who started this war, and she's got that reputation, and she's got to overcome it. And Lucius Malfoy, Jason Isaacs, is like, you know what? I don't care. I need somebody who knows Klingon, so get over here and help me. And that seems to be their relationship. So she's going to grow. Yeah. I did also like the fact that they showed the difference between when she arrived newly from Vulcandom to 7 years later when she's a very human person. Anyway, less Vulcan-y.
Less Vulcan-y, yes.
So that was cool. So you like the series? You would. Invest your time. In seeing
I'm never going to watch it. Yeah, I mean, I told you. I mean, that I feel like for me, the things that I like about shows are continuing storylines. What this has, And also allowing characters to be flawed. You know, it's not like Breaking Bad or something where someone's making meth or whatever, but somebody who, you know, I mean, I think it's still appropriate, the fact that it's only under these extreme circumstances where she did something, you know, that was, you know, a problem.
Yeah. She made a choice. It got her, eventually. Well, I mean, you could argue that. That's actually one thing I'm wondering. Is the show saying they should have followed her advice? They should have shot first?
I don't think so. I mean, it's like...
Because they would have betrayed their ideals to do that.
If they had... I think typically, for it to work, it's sort of like people aren't going to... They aren't just waiting around to jump together. So, you know, you start first, and then you probably have a little battle, and they're like, okay, we don't feel like, you know, having this fight, so we'll leave. That's good that they're, you know, don't want to fight. I don't want to do it. So I think it's really these houses that aren't together. You encounter one house, a Klingon house, and they'll behave the way they behaved typically.
In this case, the beacon had been lit, so there were 24 ships on their way.
I think it was Tecumseh's plan all along to sort of start a fight and then call everybody to, like, see, because he'd already primed them anyway. Like,
yes.
You know, like...
He wasn't going to back down.
Yeah, well, look at this. We're all fighting, or we shouldn't be fighting each other. We should be fighting these dang humans, you know, in the form of the Federation. Look at how these terrible things they're doing. They're spreading around, getting all these other people who were typically picked on, and, you know, and now they're...
come in peace.
Right, and they're becoming larger and larger. That's no good. Yeah, I like that a lot. So, you know, I think even if they'd battle them, they would just would have been like, oh, good, okay,
yeah,
that's fine. We want to fight anyway. So I don't think
and
plan would have been.
Michelle Yeoh does say at one point, "We are outgunned." Prior to being in the battle, and
right.
What I got out of that was if they started to fight, just a one-on-one fight, they were probably going to lose a one-on-one fight, even with that one ship.
Right, but technically. The fact that all those, they already communicated with Star Trek, they would have, I mean, the Starbase, Starfleet.
Right, yeah.
It was like, okay, they maybe would have, like, just as they're dying.
Right, other
ships would be coming along.
Yeah.
And really, that's what you want. You want, like, no, you know what, we're going to fight you. And even though I think it's right, the way she was saying it, we're giving you a choice. We're giving you a choice. You know, you can either leave or we can talk.
Right.
You know. And so... you know, it was interesting to me, like, you know, you might think that people who are as valid or valorous as the Starfleet might be, like, kind of wimpy. Like, no! Like, okay, we want to talk and be friends, but, you know, if you're not going to, we're going to fight. Don't worry about it.
There will be shots fired.
Yeah, so I like, you know, I like where the series is going. I like what I'm seeing from these characters. I'm interested to see if the tone changes at all, since Brian Fuller wrote the first episode, but didn't write the second episode, and I like the second episode.
It felt like one large piece because the way it ends in the middle,
because obviously he plotted it, but it's like it's really something to have to write something, so you bring in another writer, and you know he might have had some influence on that second script. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know the people that are taking over as much. Although I think that guy is still the person who I think is Nicholas Meyer. I think who directed and wrote the second one, the Wrath of Khan, who is involved in the series. I've heard. So I think it's Nicholas Meyer. Anyway, but yeah, I think he'll still be involved in the show, and so that's what I like.
So, all right. So now we'll talk about this, the format
yes.
that this is coming in. So CBS showed the first episode, obviously, on CBS. Every other episode, there's 13 episodes, I think, total, maybe?
15.
Is it 15? Okay.
15, but we're going to get like 6 or 7 first, and then there'll be a break, and then next year will be the remaining of the season.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay. So, the remainder of them are going to be on this CBS All Access.
Yes.
So you have to pay a monthly subscription
yes.
to get on CBS. So, you know, for me personally, I just came back around to Netflix. I was on Netflix. Then when they were tinkering with their pricing and stuff, I was like, and I backed away, and I was gone from Netflix for years. I finally came back mainly because of Marvel, and so like literally just a couple of months ago, I was like, all right, fine, you got me, Netflix, I'm back, and I'm on Amazon Prime, so I do some of the Amazon stuff. I'm not a big fan of like just adding channels subscription stuff. So if you twisted my arm right now, I'd probably be like, I don't think I want to go and pay CBS money because I don't watch anything else on CBS as far as I know. I'm never over on Channel 2.
Well, and here's the thing, right? It's like I know they had another show, the sequel to or the spin-off from The Good Wife, which is the Good Fight, I think it's called. So they did a similar thing where it's like, okay, if you liked The Good Wife, you can watch this sequel or this spin-off. So that was available, and there were people who made that jump. But it's not like you can't watch the other CBS shows unless you're watching All Access. No, most of their shows still are on regular broadcast television.
So this is an exception, at least for now. They're gonna, and now early, you gave me a report. There was a story that said that the sign-ups for All Access are good.
They had to have some.
There's going to be a jump for sure.
It's like the way they give you a taste. This one's for free.
Although interestingly, they do not give you the Discovery, which is that is an interesting point of like, this is a show about a ship we are not going to show you.
Yeah, no, it's just more Star Trek. That's all.
Yeah.
It's like, what? We didn't get the ship. What? No, it's more Star Trek, which I think. Now, one thing that we don't know, it's probably not the case, but who knows? CBS might decide, this is not working out. Let's put it on broadcast television, or they could just like, hey, you want to see it new? Watch it on All Access, and then or months later, you can watch the episodes that everybody else got to see.
Because as we say, overseas, in many places, it is available on Netflix.
Right. Because they don't have, it's not like they got CBS all over the world.
Yeah.
So they sell their shows, to other countries. Sell their shows to other countries, and they get shown however they decide to show it on those, probably the countries have their own like broadcasting companies like, oh yeah, we like to show it, at this time of day or whatever. So it's just America where it's this weird sort of thing. I think that's where television is going. And one of the reasons why I feel good about that actually is because I think one of the things about broadcast television is that they really want to get as many people to watch as possible, and because of that, they dumbed down the shows. One change that we've had with all this cable and stuff like that, the best television now that I think that we've ever had is because shows like The Sopranos and Mad Men have less audiences, but they're like, you know what, we want to make this show as best as possible, so we don't care about language, we don't care about nudity, and we can have subject matter that's more challenging. You don't have to worry about, how are they going to feel about this in Toledo, Ohio, or whatever. Like, we're trying to make the best show we can.
We love you, Toledo, by the way.
Yeah, but you have to love us the crazy way we are.
Yeah.
So, if you're going to make a show, you want it to be exciting as possible. You want it to be as good as possible, and I think that's what they're trying to do with this show, is that, there are going to be some Star Trek fans who are like, wait a minute, whoa, war? That's not what Star Trek is about. And what? Oh,
it's always about war, but
continuing storylines. No, I just want to have a different place each week. Yeah, we're just supposed to be explorers. Yeah.
So Elmer Fudd is apparently
is a fan, a big fan.
All right, very good
of Star Trek. You didn't know that?
I did not know that.
No.
So yeah, I guess even if it was like pay per episode, I'd probably even be more inclined to do that. Like, hey, you got to pay your $1.99 to download.
I'd be surprised if they don't. If it's not available on, it might be exclusive actually.
But I think it's like you got to do your monthly thing, because what inevitably would happen, probably to me as well as thousands of other people, would be, I'll subscribe to CBS to watch the Star Trek. Star Trek is now over. 5 months go by. oh crap! I'm still paying for CBS. Damn you, CBS! Ah! So that's
I think it's a harkening of the new world where it's like, I'm gonna do CB All Access for 1 month after the season's over, and then like every night we're gonna watch a new episode. Hey, now cancel.
Right. So anyway, we may or may not be back with episode 3. We'll see.
Well, I'm gonna watch it.
All right, very good.
And hey, if something falls off a truck,
no truck fallings. So yes,
it looks like it's just not on iTunes.
Yeah, I don't think it's on iTunes. I think they want you to come and get this. You will enjoy Blue Bloods and those other CBS shows of which I am unfamiliar.
Because I think CBS has their shows on iTunes. I think, but then it's different mindset.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Interesting. Okay. So so cool. Star Trek. It's a new series. It's good stuff. A little weird on the platforming, but yeah, that. So anyway, if you like what you saw, hit like, hit subscribe, make comments. I'm sure there's some Trekkie comments out there to make. We were probably idiots. Let us know. That's fine. Okay. Anyway, we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Live long and prosper.